All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another, for the first time in a long time, Baro breakdown. So, Baro has not brought many things that are relevant in 2021, and there's a new item today that people might be interested in. So, we're going to talk about today's inventory, and with TennoCon fast approaching, we are going to talk about 2021's inventory of new items that may or may not be of interest to anyone. So, first and foremost, let's go over today's items. I'm not going to go over the cosmetics. I'm just going to go over any of the gameplay relevant items that Baro has brought. Because, of course, the cosmetic items are entirely up to just complete subjective opinion on whether or not you like them, and do what you want with your own resources. With that, today we have the Prisma Machete, which is new. This is garbage. Absolutely terrible. Basically completely useless, especially with the looming nerfs to melee weapons. This is going to be even worse and even less usable. Of course, it is only MR7, but it's just... I mean, compared to the other things that you're going to have by the time you're MR7, if you're trying to accrue any amount of power, this is 3,000 mastery, absolute best case scenario. So we've got that, and that is, you know, it is what it is. And then we have the Opticor Vandal, which is not unusable. It is, like, fine. Obviously, with the primary buff looming, this is going to be a little bit better, but also... the Opticor Vandal is generally just a always worse version of the Stulta. So unless you just love how the Opticor Vandal looks, which is totally valid, this is probably not going to be a particularly interesting weapon to use, and will also be only 3,000 mastery. But it's also MR14, which is part of what is contributing to that, because if this weapon was a considerably lower MR, it would probably be pretty reasonable at, like, maybe MR7 like the Prisma Machete is. You could pick this up and be fairly happy with it. But with the Stulta existing and this being such a huge MR requirement, it's pretty generally not worth investing in unless you just love the Opticor, which in fairness, a lot of people do. With that, we have some mods to go over. Primed Fast Hands. This reload speed is possibly about to get a whole lot better. Because if we have enough damage on primary weapons with the new arcanes and such, it is probably an option select for certain primary weapons to use plus 55% reload speed in order to have more uptime on your guns. That is an absolute possible scenario that we might be entering into. I personally don't think that that will be more than just a to-taste type of change. And I think the condition overload type mod is going to fill those slots in most cases. But if you're someone that does not like to be reloading, and you like a bunch of guns that happen to have a long reload time, this is going to be an option. Primed Pack Leader. This is one of the least necessary prime mods that exists, because the regular version of this is going to basically on any melee attack heal your companion to full anyway. So this is pretty much just for collector's purposes, because there's no real reason to use this more expensive version of Primed Pack Leader whenever the effect essentially does not change at all. Then we have Primed Heated Charge. Primed Heated Charge is a staple pistol prime mod. Heat damage is obviously very, very good right now, and while there is some possibility that some of the new mods could replace Primed Heated Charge, as this is usually the third elemental in a secondary weapon build, this is still such a very, just extremely powerful effect that I think in the new secondary mod builds, you're much more likely to drop Hornet Strike than you are to drop Primed Heated Charge. So, very worthwhile to get. Just an extremely good high elemental mod that is one of the most important elements in the entire game. Then we have Primed Heavy Trauma. Primed Heavy Trauma has no use outside of making a stat stick build for Atlas, because Atlas is all impact damage for his punches, and this adds a bunch of impact damage to that. So unless you are very much trying to do a full build around on Atlas, this is going to be basically completely useless. But if you are way into Atlas for one reason or another, then this is a mod that sees use in those builds and is pretty much useless everywhere else. Other than that, we have the Prisma Veritux. All arc melees are pretty much completely irrelevant, so they all just boil down to 3,000 mastery, realistically. Even without that, like, I mean, I mean, I guess if arc melees had any use, this would be one of the better ones, but we're really just talking about a theoretical situation, and not really a real reason to pick this up besides the mastery. And then we have the Prisma Gorgon, which is just an ancient, outdated weapon. It's usable, but I mean, single target primaries like this just they don't really do much. It's very expensive ducat wise and is usually going to be 3,000 mastery. If you're really into the Gorgon series, I would say that this one is the best, but it's the best of a line that is at this point just outdated, and the stats are just generally not good enough for the firing style of the Gorgons. And then other than that, technically, I guess the Corrupted Bombard Spectre Blueprint is a gameplay-related item, but this Spectre is not worth the investment that you'll put into it. It's a Spectre that really doesn't do much, and Spectres don't scale well enough into actually killing other enemies in order for you to want to use this thing. So yeah, Baro. Generally speaking, not great, but Baro hasn't been super great outside of like the long-term staples like primed heated charge for a while now, which is why we've done way less of these Baro breakdown videos, because honestly Baro has been so dry for so long of like interesting mods that are like worth having a discussion about that it's hard to be motivated to make the video about it whenever the whole video is like what this was, which is like, oh hey, this thing that's been around for literal years is really good and everything else is garbage. But let's go over all of 2021. So these are all of the new items in 2021, and we're going to talk about all of them that are not cosmetics. So we have Mark of the Beast on 6 melee kills within 6 seconds, 120% status and critical chance for secondary weapons for 24 seconds on thrown melee. Melee being the best slot for your weapons in the whole game. You're almost never going to want to give up a slot to put this in, especially not whenever, you know, secondaries. Honestly, like the 120% status and critical chance, if it was flat, then like maybe you could consider it, but even then it's a pretty hard sell, especially whenever you need 6 melee kills within 6 seconds, which is already like, it's a bit of a high requirement, unless you're using just your melee to kill everyone. But if you're using just your melee to kill everyone, you basically have no incentive to then go and switch to your secondary to kill everyone. That just kind of doesn't make sense whenever your melee weapon is just doing the job already. So this mod doesn't really make sense as a use case. And then we have Prime Chilling Grasp, which is high number for shotguns. So viral is really, really good damage. And so if you're going to put viral on your shotgun, you're probably going to want Prime Chilling Grasp for all of the upfront damage. There is an argument to be made here that you actually want a lot more heat damage so that your procs are weighted towards heat instead of being weighted towards viral. But the upfront damage can, of course, be useful at a number of levels for instead of, you know, needing status to kill your enemies, you just kill them with upfront damage. So, you know, this is a good, reasonable mod to get that has some arguments in certain spots about not using it, but number go up, elemental damage go up. Halakar Wraith, it's just one of the worst end glaives. I mean, the Glaive Prime is the glaive, and especially with all of the glaives about to see a nerf, you're probably going to want to use the Glaive Prime or the Zorus and pretty much just stick to those. The special gimmicks on the Halakars don't really matter because instead of disarming an enemy, we just kill them. So kind of neither here nor there on that. And then otherwise, we have Prime Tactical Pump, which is a huge amount of reload speed for shotguns, which, again, with the new buffs coming to primary weapons, might be relevant, just like we have with Prime Fast Hands, to lower the amount of time that you spend reloading. This is probably, again, like I said, with Prime Fast Hands, more of a taste thing where you would probably instead use the Condition Overload status mod, but I mean, it's an option select, right? It's if you feel that this is better for your overall uptime and that you don't need more damage and that you just need to be shooting more, which is absolutely valid, and depending on the level will honestly usually be a higher damage output or more consistent damage output that gets you more kills. That's absolutely a valid way to go. So this is a reasonable mod. So for all of 2021, outside of cosmetic items, we basically have 2 items that are relevant at all, and one of them is a taste choice. But yeah, that's generally Baro stuff for kind of this whole year. If you're looking for mastery, today's a good day for it because we got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of mastery fodder. So that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I am going to be doing a much longer video talking about all the best items from Baro. But that's what's going on as an update just generally for 2021. And I will see you tomorrow.